Okay, we are entering into the final stage of the second day, and I know everyone is super, well, not tired, I think, but excited about all the themes we have heard, but there are 3 more exciting things for us, and absolutely thrilled to introduce our next speaker, Ilya Parkins, who is Associate Professor of Gender, Women and Sexuality Studies at the University of Columbia. She has research interests in feminism, queer theory, the history and the theory of fashion, femininities, and periodical studies. And she's the author of Porras, Caparelli, and Dior, Fashion, Femininity, and Modernity. She's also co-editor of 3 fashion-related essay collections, including the forthcoming Fashion and Feeling, The Effective Politics of Dress, which is due to be published in... Wow, it was! It just came out. Congratulations, May 2023. Amazing. And Ilya also co-edited Fashion Scene Special Issues for Australian Feminist Studies, the Journal of Modern Periodical Studies and Feminist Theory. So the paper today is Relational Fit, Belonging and the Wedding Suit.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? The microphone's working? Okay, great, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's really thrilled to be here. And to have been listening to colleagues' wonderful work today. So what I'd like to share today is a slice of my research about wedding clothes. And in this project, we interviewed 51 diversely gendered people who identify as feminist or queer, who had had a wedding since 2015 or were planning one, and were based in the US or Canada or the UK. So we had participants narrate aspects of their wedding, their clothing choices, and the kinds of values and calculations that underpin their decisions about what to wear, as well as the feelings that those clothes generated in the wearing, if they had already found them. So what I'd like to focus on here is a theme that arose for 14 of the folks we talked to, and that's suiting. I'll explore how lesbian women, transgender men, and non-binary people connected suits to questions of belonging. The literal fit of the suit on the body was indexed to their social fit. And wedding attire really amplified this connection. The occasion of the wedding amplified that connection. You know, it's an occasion that marks and celebrates and accelerates transformation of the wedding. And so it was figured by the people we talked to as a site in which to navigate belonging. So Aaron J. Rand argues, quote, masculine of center fashion is not just a means of expressing what is otherwise privately held, but also a way to imagine new relationships and new desires with objects and with others, and tap into the potential becomings of queer communities and worlds. So women, gender non-conforming and transmasculine people use suits whose meaning is contextualized by the occasion of the wedding to renegotiate their belonging. That's what I'm going to hope to show you here. So trans man Owen, for instance, described his anxiety while shopping for a wedding suit. He said, I guess it's just that I don't know anything about men's fashion. I just felt so out of sorts. It's not that I felt self-conscious about wearing men's clothing, but I felt self-conscious about being like, oh, I don't know anything about this. So here, Owen poignantly describes the feeling of not belonging in menswear stores. But he later explained how good fit remedied the anxiety when he narrated his experience returning to the tailor. When I tried it on again after getting it tailored, it was the moment where I was like, oh wow, I look good in this and it's cool. I've been feeling anxious about it, and then I was like, okay, I don't have to be so anxious about this. Shortly after this, when I asked about the feedback that he got from wedding guests about how he looked, Owen said, a lot of people were like, you look so sharp, and I thought that was really nice because that's kind of how I felt. I felt like probably I'd never worn something that fit me so well before. I think it's worth dwelling on the movement here from Owen's understanding of fit as affirming his transmasculine identity to having the fit recognized by other people and experiencing this as a validation of his gender, in other words, fitting as a man. He made a link between his dress presentation in a well-fitting suit and relational networks of others when he said, quote, it also felt very affirming because we consider ourselves a gay couple, but we're not perceived as a gay couple in public by strangers mostly at this point. I guess to me it felt like we're gay and we're having a gay wedding. It was validating that other people who attended it were on the same page as me about that. I do think that's why I was so stressed out about the outfit in a lot of ways. And I made the right choice because it worked out the way I wanted to. And here he's talking about the fit, making it work. So here Owen made the further leap from his well-fitting suit to the question of relational recognition of his as a gay wedding. He extended the symbolic meaning of fit. Owen recounts using the excellent fit of his suit in the service of fitting the commonly understood definition of a gay couple. He appropriated the meanings of the suit, bound up as they are with, in Anne Hollander's words, permanence, solidity, architecture, to present not only his masculine identity, but the couple's queer belonging within a social world. For Owen, this was precisely the desired effect, to be newly legible to people who knew him before his transition. So the suit, paradoxically, was employed to underscore the shifting of the link between visible embodiment and identity. This creative use of the suit challenges claims that suits are used only to shore up binary gender. Ben Barry and Nathan Weiner, for example, argue that, quote, suits not only remain a symbol of hegemonic masculinity, but also that their embodiment further reinforces gender inequalities. They claim that their research participants, quote, put great effort into choosing suits that allow them to present the impression that they embody hegemonic masculinity, even though they didn't see themselves as truly reflective of what that style of masculinity was meant to look like. This serves to illustrate the power hegemonic masculinity has over how men think about themselves and each other. So I'm going to depart from Barry and Weiner a little bit here, because it seems in their analysis, it seems to hold the dressed man to an individualistic standard, in which their self-representational strategies are sort of divorced from their positions in wider networks. So when Barry and Weiner attribute the desire to wear a suit to the fear of being found not masculine, their analysis implies that suit wearers are thinking of themselves alone. But Owen's example indicates that this calculation wasn't only for himself, but for his partner too. He suggests elsewhere, in fact, that it's indeed for all queer people who navigate not being recognized in the way they wish to be. It's about belonging for him. So I think that Owen's story of his suit gestures toward Amy Carrillo-Rowe's concept of differential belonging. Drawing on Sanderdal's theory of modes of differential consciousness, differential belonging, quote, allows us to move among different modes of belonging without feeling trapped or bound by anyone in particular. These modes of belonging each, quote, suggest a way of being together, a way of structuring social relations. The modes include assimilationist, revolutionary, supremacist, and separatist. While it might be tempting to read Owen's investment in the suit as an indication of assimilation to dominant regimes of gender, I think that fails to recognize how the suit engages across the assimilationist and revolutionary modes of belonging. That is, while his own anxiety about the suit reveals a desire to be recognized in his masculinity, that visibility is entangled with the wish to be recognized as a member of a gay relationship that's not easily read as such because of gender conventions. It thus falls in line with the revolutionary mode in which, quote, people of difference recognize and value our difference as the foundation of our humanity. As Rowe notes, these modes of belonging can exist simultaneously, and, quote, the emphases on different modes of belonging will shift throughout our lives. Owen's well-fitting suit is a material index of belonging that highlights the changeability of his identity. So I see the suit as linking to a broader feminist and queer literature on belonging as dynamic and as a process. Such work is distinguished by its emphasis on relation. This isn't about an individual's singular experience of belonging, but about a belonging produced relationally. As Rosalind Diprose argues, quote, belonging is never purely individual, fully habituated, or closed. It must be renewed through other bodies, and this renewal revises the past and opens an indeterminate future. So because experiences of belonging are produced intersubjectively, that belonging has a temporal dimension. Stasis isn't possible when being is predicated on unpredictable encounters with other people. This is notable even in the process of buying the suit. Transmasculine participant B, for example, explained his interest in being fitted in a shop or tailor's, saying, quote, I think it's more just the idea of even getting fitted for a suit, like being in this very masculine type of environment where there's leather chairs and they're like, hey, do you want a beer before we measure you? It's this very male-dominated type of talking. Yeah, so I think the process for me is almost as important as the actual suit. So in B's telling, the homosocial rituals of the consultation and the fitting prefigure the wedding, and they afford the opportunity for a kind of informal rehearsal. Belonging, as this anecdote illustrates, is meaningless without a milieu to belong to. It was the suit that facilitated access to this milieu in B's case. Also attentive to the question of fitted suiting and belonging was RJ, who's non-binary. When I asked them about the possibility of having a suit custom made, they said, "I would really like that. I would like to feel like I belong." For RJ, belonging seems to follow from their body, and Taylor's skill at custom fitting will help them navigate the vagaries of a body that doesn't seem to satisfactorily represent them in their identity. The tailor is imagined as providing the material means to shift RJ's self-perception, including their own relationship to their body, providing that elusive sense of belonging. So to draw again on Rosalind Diprot's quote, it's an affective relation to other different bodies that opens the body to meaning and an undetermined future. The future of embodied comfort that RJ conjured had two dimensions, their visual presentation to others and their own comfort. When I asked what they wanted their wedding suit to do for them, they said, "I want them to make me not look like a linebacker with a giant chest. Part of this is I need to lose some weight. I've gained some weight since we've gotten together and I'm uncomfortable in my body. I don't mind the number per se, but I'm uncomfortable with the way I feel in clothes." So I would note the inextricability of looking and feeling here. RJ's feeling of embodied comfort registers the knowledge that their dressed bodies will be subject to others' gaze. The belonging they imagine the suit will facilitate is about both their felt sense of embodiment and how it is seen. Belonging is a constellation of those embodied experiences and the relational sensing by others. So while this is generally true, of course, clothing, because it's at once material and representational, I really think it amplifies that quality. Consider Caden, a trans man. In explaining that the wedding suit provoked gender euphoria and kicked off a renewed positive relationship to his clothed embodiment, he highlights the capacity of the suit to remake not only his relationship to his body, but his capacity to represent it to others. Quote, "It gives me that euphoric feeling because it's like I feel like myself, or what I see in the mirror is what I see in my head for what I should look like." In aligning the visual picture with felt embodiment, the suit closed the gap between meaning and embodiment. The suit issues a challenge to what Diprot calls, quote, "a conceptual separation of meaning and recognizable identity on one hand, from corporeal and lived experience on the other." As she elaborates, while community and therefore forms of belonging constitute themselves on the basis of shared meaning, belonging is also lived through the body. Another relevant insight that was introduced in the feminist and queer literature on belonging is that it opens onto the future. Because belonging is a process, its temporality is necessarily open. The wedding suit was explained by participants as a means of cultivating felt belonging for a future. In analyzing the suit as a charged affective object for queer and transmasculine people, Aaron Rand notes the ubiquity of, quote, "narratives about masculine-centered people trying on well-fitting suits for the first time, often after previous experience with men's suits that did not complement the wearer's body type." Embedded here is a temporal structure. The suit wearing leads to a new experience of the body, and that gets taken into the future. So for participants in this research, the well-fitted suit was similarly future-oriented. We've seen how Caden saw his wedding suit as a catalyst for a more general healing from gender dysphoria. And Deja said of her tailored jacket, "I feel it allowed me to embrace something about myself that I don't think I can embrace typically. I'm very well endowed. It's one of those things where it allowed me to embrace my curves while simultaneously embracing my love of what is considered masculine dress. I love suits. I feel powerful in a suit, especially a suit that fits well." So Deja's use of the present tense here suggests that the wedding sort of crystallized a feeling that persisted, so rather than confining that feeling to the wedding. Deja, who is Black, contextualized this with an acknowledgement that she'd, quote, "been on her own gender journey," and finding that the identity that most resonated with her was Two-Spirit, which she was identifying with through her native descent. So for those who don't know, Two-Spirit is a term that is claimed by Indigenous peoples in Turtle Island in North America to refer to what we would sort of call queer identities. And she was in the process of having her Indigenous ancestry validated by the nations from which she had descended. The suit, she explained, embodied this Two-Spirit identity, because it, quote, allowed her to embrace her curves while simultaneously embracing her love of what is considered masculine dress. With a description of her gender identity as a journey, she implicitly established the suit jacket as a kind of way station on the trajectory toward a new form of belonging with the Indigenous community. This link to her Indigenous ancestry emphasizes the intersection and simultaneity of multiple forms of belonging for Deja, her relationship to indigeneity and to gender. The grammar of her pronouncements about the suit's effect, which grounded in the present and unfolds into the future, amplifies the sense that something new is being inaugurated by the wearing of the jacket at the wedding. As Diprose notes in her discussion of the film Beneath Clouds, which focuses on the relationship between two Indigenous teenagers, for one of them, quote, evoking a past of belonging to Indigenous community offers future possibilities for such a community. Two-spirit, an identity claim that derives from imagined past and imagined future affiliation with community, becomes possible for Deja precisely because of the embodied possibilities that the suit represents. Owen similarly framed the positive affect generated by the well-fitting suit as something that exceeded the time of the wedding. Quote, I felt like probably I'd never worn something that fit me so well before. The fact that it was really the first time that I'd ever appeared in men's formal wear was kind of special because I felt like it was my debut. Here it was the proper fit of the tailored suit that led to feeling, as he put it, cool and good-looking in this debut. The word debut drives home the point that the relationship that was to his identity that was centered at the wedding wasn't confined to this occasion, but would continue into an indefinite form. For Owen, the embodied feelings of belonging that stretched into the future also touched the past. Owen explained that the suit's good fit helped legitimize his wedding as gay, the suit having underscored Owen's masculinity, as I explained. He then said, it's important logistically to have the rights conferred by marriage. I feel safer with them. It was the suit that facilitated the recognition of Owen as gay, which was then conceptually linked to legal recognition. So a network of institutional consequences flowed from his felt experience of being seen and belonging as a gay man. Next, though, he made a leap backward in time. We were both listed as male on our wedding certificate, which was also kind of a thing because my gender doesn't match in all my places. But on our wedding certificate, it was male and male. So when I filled that out, it was like, oh, people wouldn't have been able to do this before, but now we can. I felt kind of like making the decision to do the legal wedding was like honoring people who have worked for it. So the chain of associations is stretched further. Being seen to belong not only creates a new future, but opens Owen and his husband to the past, connecting them to an activist history. Recall Diprose's formulation. Quote, belonging must be renewed through other bodies, and this renewal revises the past and opens an indeterminate future. Validation by a community of others is paramount in Owen's narration of this sort of temporal traveler. The ability to make these links across time is predicated on the community's reading of the suit. His body, dressed in that suit, accrues these meanings because belonging was seen into being at the wedding. As Diprose writes, quote, bodies do not mean anything by themselves, nor do they belong to themselves. The difference of other bodies engenders, separates, and opens one's sensibility of belonging. So, without the visual spectacle of the wedding, which brings together a mass of other bodies to witness, recognize, and validate Owen's body as a man, these touchings of past and future become unimaginable. Just a note to conclude here. Work in fashion studies has tended, I think, and many of us know this, to reproduce a cleavage between understanding clothing as a representational tool, the idea that clothing speaks and can be wielded sort of instrumentally by wearers, and analyses, on the other hand, that focus on the embodied and affective experience of wearing clothing, its intimacy with the subject's body, and its resistance to being mastered by wearers. I think that considering the suit as a material technology of belonging demonstrates that the opposition between these two positions is not in keeping with lived navigations of clothing. My participants' understanding and use of clothing as a communicative instrument to facilitate belonging did not preclude their embodied, more than rational experience of their suits. Rather, the fit of the suit on the body worked hand in hand with the suit's communicating power to underscore the wearer's placement in the world. The wearer's experience of good fit translating into a general social belonging was something they felt in their bodies that required validation through being communicated to others. They felt good in indescribable sensory ways, but to complete the picture, they also needed to translate that rightness of feeling to others. And the well-fitting suit underscored the complete imbrication of the sensing body in the communicative sphere. And I will end there. Yes, some thank yous, and also my wonderful participants on this podcast, which I created in 2021, which I really recommend to you because they are so brilliant and wonderful. So, thank you.